Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canadian Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel, and this is a Skinwalker Ranch series review, and this is a review of the season finale. And they had some Top Gun people there. In fact, some of the smartest people in the world that are involved in this topic were there at the table at Brandon's office. I was duly impressed with the way they put this show together. It was the right place, right way to do it, and they kind of brought together some of the big events of this season. Now, they stepped into this segment by kind of reviewing a little bit about what they'd done. And in the UFO, or in the Skinwalker show before the season finale, the one last week, they put a series of drones up in the sky. And just like it with every issue at the ranch, batteries start to fail on the drones start to come down. At one point, 10 drones came down early. And I've told you many times that this battery failure is something that's normal when you're in these strange environments. There's a lot of conjecture about what may be causing it, but the truth is it happens. It happens with everything. And sometimes it seems targeted. If you're there trying to, let's say, record something audio-wise, it'll affect the audio but not the video. It seems like the intelligence involved is off the chart. And you could say, oh, this is just made for TV. Well, you're looking at somebody that this has happened to. In different things I've done in the field with film, this has happened to us. And I don't like to talk about it much because people will say, just like what you just said, oh, you did that to enhance the storyline. No, we just never talked about it. But I'm telling you now, it's happened. And it happens in areas where there's high strangeness. Now, in that season finale beginning, they talked about one of the larger rockets that they shot into the sky. And they lost it. This got me mad. Very, very mad. Prometheus has the budget, and so does Brandon. It isn't even a big budget to put a camera on a tripod and follow the rocket into the sky with FLIR. How do I know you can follow it? Because the rocket has an engine. The engine puts out heat. The heat can be seen on the FLIR. Rocket goes up, you follow it with a camera. Okay, so what elevation did you lose it at? Where did you lose it? Did it turn? No, they never even followed it with a FLIR. I couldn't believe it. And that kind of makes the viewers seem like chumps, because we shouldn't accept that. If you're going to put a team in the field to film this, then you film it with the right cameras. And either they didn't have them there, something malfunctioned and they didn't want to talk about it, or they have an inadequate crew. That's the only explanations I can figure. But they were saying that the rocket traveled 800 miles per hour to 10,000 feet, disappeared. And then they said that at 10,000 feet, they found this 1/4 second shift in time. And then Travis said that 1/4 second side effect is a side effect of a traversable wormhole. Now, if you have watched Vanished, the show I did for Prometheus, the same show, we did a 2-hour special about missing people. You can watch it on Amazon. We brought in a team of PhDs to measure if there was a time lag at Mesa Verde National Park, and there was. It blew everyone's mind. Now, why there? Because hundreds of people disappeared there and were never found, and the Park Service has no idea where they went. We're talking about the entire tribe that occupied the cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde. Fact. Now, is there a wormhole there? I've never heard that this time delay is a side effect of a wormhole. That's super fascinating to me. I'm glad Travis said it. I believe him 100%. But it makes me think that maybe we need to do more experiments at Mesa Verde National Park. Now, we had the okay from the Park Service to do this, but I'd like to do more. Then they switched locations, and they kind of started the formal part of the show in Salt Lake City at Brandon's offices. Kind of a data review. They have the prior governor of Utah there, a guy named Jim Royston. And then they brought in Jay Stratton, who was a defense intelligence person who was on the ranch 10 years ago as a representative of the government. In the meeting, I was pretty surprised that Jay didn't say almost anything worthwhile. The camera kind of got him staring out into the distance. And at one point they asked him, "Oh, what do you think?" And he goes, he seemed very surprised by what he was seeing during the meeting. I'm not sure I believe that. But I expected more comment out of him since he was the expert that was on scene for years. But we didn't get that. They talked about some points below ground that were interesting. And the way the meeting went later was focusing underground. Now, when they were shooting the rocket and things, they showed some pictures of a very tight round orb coming across the sky. And it was apparent that there was just one. And as they tracked it, it morphed into 2, 3, 4, 5 orbs. I've seen this before in other UFO footage, but for them to catch it was a good one. Jay Stratton said he hadn't seen this before at the ranch. And then they had helicopter footage when Brandon's brother was flying and they were doing some experiments. And an orb is seen in front of the helicopter coming down towards the mesa, disappearing under the ground. And then coming out of the ground and jettisoning off screen. And Brandon said it was going at 300 miles per hour while underground. Now, why is this important? Well, first of all, there's been a lot of UFO footage over the years of them going directly into mountains, directly into volcanoes, traveling hundreds of miles per hour under the ocean. Yes, and our Navy has recorded this, and some people have come forward to talk about it. But to catch it on the video like they did, it's pretty impressive. Now, a company called Omnitech was there, and their CEO, who was another defense intelligence person for the government, this is that company I talked to you about before. It could be subsidized by the government. We don't know. It's a private company. All the people working for it that we've seen are all ex-defense intelligence people, so who knows what their strategy is. Well, this CEO for the company, Omnitech, was talking about when they came out and did an extensive LiDAR study, 400,000 scans per second with a specially designed LiDAR drone. Flies over the mesa, shoots 400,000 scans down towards the ground and underground per second. They launched a rocket simultaneously while it was doing it. And what they found is at that 31-foot level, there was a big black blob right in the middle of their LiDAR research. So if you can imagine, this drone's flying along, it's shooting lasers down. To have a black blob there seems impossible, but there was. There was a discussion about what might be there, and somebody piped up and said maybe it's a shadow of a wormhole. And it was black, which meant that there was no data return. Well, that seems impossible too, because the LiDAR shoots down, bounces back up, and records distance, time, etc. And they shot the rocket up, and the arch of the rocket went around the anomaly. So they had this huge discussion about the black blob. And I can tell that there was a lot of concern. I think when you're around a super group of intelligent people like there were at that table, you don't want to look like an idiot and say something that everyone may burn you down for. And that's, when you're in those kind of meetings, the bigger the meeting, the more it causes people to maybe be quiet and not speak up. Smaller meetings, more people would speak up. So I had a feeling that in this meeting, there wasn't a lot of contributions from a lot of different people. And I was looking for them from Stratton, from Travis, etc. Travis was talking a lot, but he should have been. But the other people, the CEO of Omnitech and Stratton, were pretty darn quiet. But the general consensus was they thought that they were on their way towards identifying this wormhole. And it was like an inverted funnel. And they didn't have any really solid reasons to explain why this black blob was there. It did say that the blob did destroy one rocket at 31 feet, which is pretty interesting. Now, the North Americans believe that there's a portal on the property, and there's this kind of starts in the center and slowly moves out position of rocks, boulders at the portal. And Jonathan Dover, who's been on this Skinwalker show multiple times, has stated that that's an identification point for a portal. Well, they talked about the Native American beliefs. Well, giddy up. Stop for a minute. I've talked to Jonathan extensively many times. Super smart man. Navajo Ranger, educated, knows all of the aspects of Native American belief. And you can meet him personally, spend time with him personally at our conference, MontanaCon. Yeah, I'm going to break off for a second because I got to advertise this. And Jonathan, who spent time at the ranch, Jonathan, right there, is going to be one of our guest speakers. And if you want to order tickets, you better do it quick because we're running short quickly. So here's the URL to order, or place your camera over this, freeze frame it, put your camera, phone over it, and the QR code will come up and you can order. But when I heard them talking about this, I said, this is going to be good. Because I'm going to talk to Jonathan and make sure that he does talk about what's going on at the ranch. Another thing they did at the ranch is they drilled. They drilled into the side of the mountain. They drilled into the top of the mountain. And they didn't make any progress when they hit this one item. And they said the unique point was when they pulled the drill out, it didn't show any damage to the drill head, nor any wear to the drill head. So it's almost like the thing that they were trying to drill into had some type of protection or lubricant on it that didn't allow it to be penetrated. And they're walking you down this road, as I am right now, to what we're going to talk about in a second. But at one point, when they drilled out of the mountain, they got some what they called metamaterials. And Travis said that our government is testing these for cloaking purposes. Now, they got these out of that mountain when they were trying to drill into the point where this thing was. And they got a lot of strange stuff out of there. Now, the gotcha moment in this segment was no doubt when Jeremiah Pate came out a couple weeks ago, and he put a device on a balloon, and he put it up above the ranch, and he was going to do flight data using low frequency radar scan. And what he would recover looks something like a FLIR recovery, in that it was color coded by depth. So he flew over this area where this believed portal is at, and believed underground whatever is at. And this radar penetrates the ground and does a 1D, 2D, 3D scan of what's underneath the ground. Now, if anybody remembers way back when, years ago when I started to talk about this, I told you that a friend of mine, Bruce, who's a physicist, says his personal thought is that there was something underground at the ranch. This is way before anybody ever thought there was something underground. And he thought it was something like an antenna, a device to home in on for these UFOs. Bruce Maccabee. And Bruce was in Missing 411 The Hunted. We had a lot of conversations about this because it intrigued me, and it intrigued Bruce too. Now, he was an optical physicist, super smart. And when Jonathan Pate started to talk about it, he showed this photo, and it kind of looked to me like your GI tract inside your gut. It's kind of what it reminded me of. Kind of a tubular thing that had irregular, it wasn't real straight or finite like it was engineered. It was strangely arcing in different directions. And he said that purple colors were 10 meters down, green was 15 to 20, yellow 30 to 50. And he said that there were unusual voids below the surface of the ground that didn't match the geology in other parts of the ground in the area. Key point. He said that these voids stretched into the mesa. Key point. In one segment, he said that these tunnels were as big as 60 feet wide. And he said that he could tell that the tunnels had high metallic content. And they called it a sophisticated tunnel system. And then one of the guys said, well, how can that be? Because the mesa is ancient. Think about that. The mesa is ancient, which means that these things in the ground are probably ancient. Or is it possible that, I don't know, could be 50 years ago, could be 150 years ago, could be 1,000 years ago, these UAPs came down for some reason. They saw something about this location that was appealing. And since they can go underground without an opening, they just went underground and started to dig their own tunnels. How would we ever know? Right? Then they started to talk about how and what they were going to do next. And they said, well, how do we study this? And one person said, well, I think we should do it surgically. small, minute holes, because we don't want to destroy what we're studying. Okay. Or do you want a giant opening to study? Well, I've told you before that I've heard from insiders that Brandon Fugal will not dig into that mesa and open it up. Not going to happen. That's what I was told, at least for this season, and it was 100% true. So maybe they don't want to disrupt what's happening, but they still want to study it, like poking the bear, right? Now, as I'm thinking about this as they're talking, what if there is something about that ranch? It's like a homing beacon. In rough terms, it's a lighthouse on the ocean. Okay, lighthouses for boats. Maybe this somehow is a beacon for UFOs to find. I don't know. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe it's like a giant off-ramp of a freeway. You know, some freeways going for 10, 15, 20 miles, and there's no off-ramp. But then the first off-ramp, that's a busy place. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's an off-ramp for UFOs. Then I started thinking, I said, well, what could be at that off-ramp? Well, when you looked at the underground radar of the tunnels didn't show that there was anything inside the tunnels. So is there something about the design, the width, or the metal in the tunnels that re-energizes, refuels, or is a safe place to stall and wait if they need to during their travels? There was no discussion about this. I'm just speaking out loud. Some other people said, well, maybe it's an underground base. Well, if UFOs can go into anything solid, why would they need a base? They can meet up in the sky, they can meet in any mountain they want to. I don't know if that makes sense. But the design of the tunnels, is that critical? Is the way it's moving through underground, is that critical? And then they were a little unsure how deep the tunnels went in the ground. Lately, I've heard some theories about a hollow earth theory, that the center of the earth is hollow. Is this a tunnel that goes to the center of the earth, and these things occupy the center of the earth? I don't know. Now, I'm sure the scientists, hardcore scientists, will say, Dave, that's insane. The center of our earth is filled with molten lava, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't know. I learned the same thing in science that you did, so I'm not discounting it, I'm speaking out loud. And then Travis said, well, magnetic fields move. And maybe we need to track this. A long time ago in my talks with you, I said that what's lacking at the ranch is comprehensive monitoring of all these different things at different areas. NIDS did this. NIDS had cameras up all the time. Now what that did is that shut down the travel to and from the ranch, and they just stopped. Very similar in Bigfoot research. You put cameras up, Bigfoot stops coming around. They don't want to be seen. Then the Omnitech CEO, the one-time government intelligence officer, said, well, we want to come in and bring specialized equipment to monitor these things, like seismic sensors. To know, I didn't quite understand why seismic sensors would be important, but I'm an idiot. I don't know. But seismic sensors. They have them all along the U.S. border. I can tell you that. In the remote areas where there's a U.S. immigration site here and along the Canadian-U.S. border, and 50 miles away there's another one. Well, people may not know this, but all along that route there's seismic sensors. And they got a big board, and when one goes off, they'll send somebody up there to track down people. Seismic sensors are actually pretty cool. I don't know enough about them to understand how you could tell the difference between a grizzly bear walking around and a person walking around. I wouldn't know. Or how about a Bigfoot walking around and a human walking around? So they were going to bring seismic sensors. But Omnitech said that they were going to bring tools and work in partnership with Brandon and his team to try to get more answers. As long as we knew for a fact that nothing would be censored off of the data they received, I'd be all for that. But I'm not sure how that could be accomplished, because Omnitech is surrounded by prior government intelligence people. So I like to think these are good guys. Oh, I'm sure they are good guys, but is their first allegiance to informing us, the people? Or is their first allegiance to informing the government and hiding things from us? Because that's really what their career was all about. I'm a little questionable about this. Now, talk about how the UFO hearings the last few weeks may have affected what's going on at the ranch. Well, what happened at the ranch happened months and months ago. It didn't happen anytime soon. So nothing in the UFO hearings could have affected the ranch. Do I think there's going to be any big epiphanies from these UFO hearings? No. I don't believe it will happen. Now, we had some interesting revelations from ex-government employees who said they heard this from someone, but they weren't first-hand observations, which bothered me. Now, one of the congressmen that is pushing for this is Tim Burchett from Tennessee. I know Tim very well. He's a true American. I know him well enough that he's one of the very few out there that cares about you and me. He knows what's happening in this world. And his wife and family are just like the nicest people you ever want to meet. I've been very fortunate to spend time with them. We need more people like Tim. Every once in a while I'll see a comment on Twitter attacking him absolutely falsely. And I'm going to jump up and defend him. He won't defend himself because of his position, but I will. I don't care. When I know somebody's wrong, they're wrong. I'll take them on. But Tim has played a big role in this UFO congressional hearing. And he has told me that, Dave, our government is holding big secrets from us. They've been holding big secrets for years and years. And he knows it's time for them to come loose with the truth. And he said, Dave, I'll do everything in my power to get that truth out. Well, there's few people that are willing to do that. And I appreciate it, Tim, for what you're doing. So, I'm kind of sorry that the season's over, but I'd really like to sit down with Travis for a half an hour. No, really, I'd like to sit next to him on a flight for about 3 or 4 hours and just pick his brain about what I know and what he knows. But that'll never happen. Again, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I'm not Monday night quarterbacking these guys because I think they're doing a really good job. They exposed some things this year that were phenomenal. I do think that there's a portal on that property, wormhole. And I think they will find more ways in the future to expose it and get data on it. And that's exciting to me. It's exciting for me because of the other research I'm involved in. So, in the meantime, be nice to your family. Do things that are good for yourself. And when you're out in public, be nice to people. Doesn't cost anything to smile and say hi. And hopefully we'll see you at MontanaCon, Kalispell, California, October 7th through the 8th. Paulides out.